I could never do that. It's not the right time. But is that really the thing that's holding you back? Or is it actually that knot in your stomach whispering to you, don't do it, it's too risky? Welcome to the Property Mindset Podcast, where I'm Emma Howitt, mentor, investor, and your guide to building wealth, freedom, and personal transformation through property. Property isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about building the life that you truly desire. And in this space, we don't just talk about strategy, we dive deep into mindset, and something that I have found is often missing in other industries. That's an absolute game changer in the professional property circles. So today we are looking at fear as a compass. Why being scared means you're aiming in the right direction. And I really feel that this can be one of the most misunderstood parts of your property journey. So, most investors, they obsess over interest rates. What if the market crashes? Is now the right time to buy? I mean, you hear all these things, don't you? When you go out for dinner, you're in the pub. Not that I really go out to the pub, but all of these things, you hear people talking in the playground. Oh, I could never do that. It's not the right time. But is that really the thing that's holding you back? Or is it actually that knot in your stomach whispering to you, don't do it, it's too risky? And we tend to believe that voice. So stick around and we will unpack why fear is definitely not a red light to stop you, but actually a compass pointing you to your next level, and how you can use it to actually make smarter, bolder moves in property. So let's turn dreams into actions and actions into success. So we're going to cover off a few bits, but first, what fear really is, and perhaps isn't, for us property investors. So what actually is fear in the context of property? Because obviously fear is really natural. It's an automatic reaction whenever you step outside your comfort zone. Your brain's job is to keep you safe. It likes the familiar, but that's not necessarily successful or financially free. So when you go to make your first offer, talk to an investor, walk into a networking room, uh, move to a new strategy, literally your nervous system is going, it's firing off alarms. And that's even when you've done your due diligence. So Winston Churchill, who's amazing, nailed the distinction in this one simple line. Fear is a reaction, courage is a decision. Oh, he was a clever man, wasn't he? Fear is a reaction, courage is a decision. So it's basically that fear is that first spike of emotion, but courage is what you choose to do next. So, the fear will come around things like, what if I lose some money on this deal? Obviously, that's a very important one. What if the agent thinks I'm stupid? I hear this all the time, especially with newbie investors that I'm mentoring. They're really worried about looking silly. What if I, panic over having a mortgage on a property? What am I going to do to raise the money? I'm really frightened to speak to investors. So, like always, you can go down two roads. Mr. Investor one says, oh my gosh, this must mean that this is totally wrong for me, and backs away and says, oh, none of these deals are any good for me. And they just literally scroll through Rightmove every now and again and just say, yeah, it's not the right time for me. Or Mrs. Investor 2 feels exactly the same. We're none of us are unique in feeling these fears. We all feel them. But Mrs. Investor 2 might be saying, okay, well, this really means that I'm actually at the edge of my growth, really does the due diligence, really checks the numbers, and takes the next small step. And that might be, speaking to a really experienced investor to give you feedback. So this is exactly the same market, the same emotions, but a totally different way of interpreting it, and a totally different way, a totally different look of what your portfolio might look like over the next 5 years. So what's really important is to kind of reframe. Fear is not proof you're on the wrong path. It's often proof you're standing at the threshold of a bigger life. Okay. And the philosopher Seneca, I'm presuming I'm saying that correctly, said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Oh my gosh, I can't believe how true that one is. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Oh, that's making me feel slightly sick myself because that is so true, certainly for me. And because our imagination is just so powerful, we want to use it to visualize our goals, not to talk ourselves out of every opportunity. So it's all about really feeling what it's going to be like, and your emotions are so important. So feeling exactly what it'd be like when you hit those goals. How excited are you going to be? What are you going to be doing? Who are you going to tell? Are you jumping up and down with excitement? What are you doing? So then we need to understand, what is the comfort zone trap? And that basically means no fear, but it also means no growth. So if we look at Carol Dweck in her book Mindset: The New Psychology of Success, she talks about having a fixed mindset where we see fear, we see failure, and this is your proof. Your mind is always looking for that one to, prove that you're correct, and it'll prove that you're not good enough. Okay. And you'll just constantly, it's a bit like saying, don't see red cars. All you then see is red cars. So if you're looking for proof that you're not good enough, you'll see it. Whereas if you have a growth mindset, you do see the fear, exactly as we said, you still have those same emotions, but the setbacks that you see or you feel are your feedback and training. And you see that as a way of moving forward. And Carol says the view you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way you lead your life. So everyone can have exactly the same experience, but they view it, they perceive it in a different way. And this is really powerful. I mean, I've had some instances recently where somebody has behaved so against my values and morals, but I had to understand that they viewed something in a totally different way. Didn't mean I was right and they were wrong. We just viewed something very differently. And so, of course, when you're applying this to property, your fixed mindset would say something like, I'm just not good with risk. I'm so scared to look for a JV partner. What happens if I don't know, if they screw me over? What happens if my builder makes an error in the refurbishment? And you can start labeling yourself, oh no, I'm just not a risk taker. And you're going to remain small, basically, and in that comfort zone. The growth mindset is you're feeling the same, but you're just saying to yourself, I'm learning to manage risk. What do I need to do to learn? Who do I need on my team to help me succeed? And what is that smallest step that I can take to start moving forward? So I always talk about having different goals, and Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, if you haven't read it, oh my gosh, it's an absolute essential. He said, and this is actually one of my favorite quotes of all time: whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Okay. So there's two really important things there. So conceive. So one, just the fact that you've been able to think of something means that you can do it. But equally, you have to believe that you can do it. Then you can achieve it. So the gap between conceive and achieve is generally quite a long, uncomfortable corridor full of fear, full of doubt, and full of risk. But if your goals, don't scare you, then they're just another list of little things to do. They're not going to move you forward. So when we look at sort of people in history, Henry Ford literally risked everything to produce, to create a mass-produced affordable car. I mean, he had ridicule, financial danger, but he had a willingness to act despite fear. And he reshaped basically transporting the whole world. Malala Yousafzai um, chose education and advocacy under real threat. She said, some people get afraid of it, but some people, if they want to achieve their goal, they have to go, they have to move. Another one is Serena Williams. She didn't just want to be a decent tennis player. She absolutely wanted greatness. She faced pressure and fear at every single challenge. So, in property, your thoughts and your version behind this, you're not going to go to war. You're not challenging a global regime. It literally might be that you're walking into a viewing and you feel really out of your depth. I remember walking into a viewing when I was going to do my first approach an agent on my first purchase lease option. I was literally walking up the stairs behind this person, reading my notes that I was going to say to him. It was hilarious. It might be picking up the phone to a potential investor, signing a contract with your builder. But if you wait until you feel fearless, you're just never going to move forward. As Susan Jeffers put it in her classic book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, she said the only way to get rid of the fear of doing something is to go out and do it. So the next part is to look at your property fear map. So there are kind of labels behind the panic. Um, and generally, and I hear this with my lovely mentees, there's a few fears that constantly show up, especially in property investors. The There are kind of like hidden labels sitting behind them. But here are the main ones. So I'm bad with money, I'll lose it. So underneath that, it's really saying I'm not trustworthy with finances. And this can just show up with so many ways in deal analysis. You're not going to make offers. It's really challenging to raise private finance. And generally, that we're just terrified of messing it up. You've then got, I'm just not a real investor. And this is huge for new people. They might have bought their own property. They might have quite a lot of experience, but they feel that they're not a real investor and they might look silly. They're just like, oh, I'm just pretending I'm an amateur. So you might not ask questions at a networking event. You might hide at the back. You perhaps don't share your wins, and they can be really amazing for other people. And that's just because you're scared of being exposed. It might be that you're kind of like, I'm just not a risk taker. I need to feel certainty. And really underneath that, you're thinking, well, what if something goes wrong? Then it proves that I'm a failure. If you're ready to take your property journey to the next level, check out my Property Success Mindset Formula. It's a course on Udemy, and inside you'll discover actionable strategies and exercises designed to shift your thinking, boost your confidence, and help you navigate property challenges with clarity. Whether you're just starting out or looking to break through to a new level, this course delivers the mindset tools professional investors use every day. Visit the link in the show notes to unlock your property potential. Your biggest asset is not just your portfolio, but the way you think. And we kind of, a lot of that is waiting for the right time, and we use that as a shield. But Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Wow, that's beautiful. And then the fourth one is, "Oh, I'd rather be safe than sorry." And again, this is underneath that. You're basically saying, I don't trust myself to handle challenges. You would rather avoid bigger deals, new strategies, partnerships. And even when the numbers stack, obviously the numbers need to stack, because you don't believe that you can control or cope with things if there's a wobble. So we know that indecision is itself a decision. And I talk about this a lot with decision making. So a decision is to say exactly where you are. That is a decision. You can decide, look, I'm just not going to grow. But Cicero warned us thousands of years ago, more is lost by indecision than by wrong decision. Indecision is the thief of opportunity. I'm going to read that again. Love it. More is lost by indecision than by wrong decision. Indecision is the thief of opportunity. So if we just stop making decisions, we're never going to get those opportunities to move forward. Another favorite book of mine is by Maxwell Maltz, Psycho-Cybernetics. And it talks about your self image as a thermostat, and you're constantly pulling yourself back to what feels normal. And your fear is often just your thermostat, like screaming and pulling you back because you're trying to turn the temperature up when you're going for more visibility, when you're taking bolder moves, and it's just dragging you back. So we're not looking to not experience fear. We're not looking to erase that. We're just looking to reset your thermostat to a new level so that action feels normal. So when we've got our fear compass, we can use 4 tools to turn fear into a forward motion. So your fear compass is like a toolkit, and we can use these 4 tools and really think about how these change your relationship with fear, and look at your property results, see how they shift. Tool 1, name the fear and ask the growth question. So when you feel that knot in your stomach, pause and ask, well, what exactly is it that I'm afraid of here? Is this fear pointing me towards something important for my growth? You're generally going to be feeling anxious. Um, you know, Try and be specific as well. Am I scared of losing the investor's money? Am I scared the agent will think I'm clueless? Am I scared of taking on this debt? Now, at that stage, we need to ask the growth question. If I knew I was capable of handling challenges, would I still want to do this? So, again, that growth question is, if I knew I was capable of handling challenges, would I still want to do this? So, if the answer is yes, that fear is telling you to run. It's telling you this step matters. Tool number 2, right size, right, size the risk. Okay. And this is the John Howard rule. Okay. Next, we right size the risk. So John Howard, and I will pop the podcast in that you need to go and listen to because I've interviewed John. He's just fabulous. Is always do tremendous due diligence, but you have to accept that things will still go wrong. If nothing is going wrong anywhere in your life, you're probably just not stretching yourself enough. So questions to ask are, what is the realistic worst case scenario? Um, how can I limit or insure against that? Have I spoken to my power team, my broker, my solicitor, my builder, my mentor? Jeff Bezos builds Amazon on what he calls regret minimization. And he asks what he'll regret at 80, taking the risk or playing it safe. He also says most decisions are reversible. You don't need 100% of the information. 70% plus action is often enough, is what Jeff says. So in property, you might put in a conditional offer. You might structure, or you should structure, multiple exits. You might start smaller, but start now. Tool 3 is take the smallest next step. And action kind of shrinks fear. I know one of my mentors said to me, for people who aren't taking steps forward, if you think about the rung of a ladder, it often means that that first rung is just too high. You just can't reach it. So you need to put in lots more smaller rungs to be able to get there. So ask yourself, what is the smallest next step I can take in the next 24 hours? It might be obviously like booking a viewing, calling an agent, messaging an investor for coffee, running the numbers on 3 deals in an area. And as Tony Robbins reminds us, your life changes the moment you make a new, congruent, and committed decision. So it's not about the moment you think about it, it's actually the moment that you commit and take that step. So every time you act with fear in the passenger seat, you're actually training your brain that this is a safe thing to do. And that is neuroplasticity in action. And Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about how he explains new thoughts plus new actions plus new emotions can literally rewire our brains. And tool 4 is the fear ladder and reflection. So let's think about building a fear ladder. So we write down one action that feels like a 7 out or an 8 out of 10 on your fear scale. And then break that into smaller, like we spoke about with those rungs, into smaller rungs that feel like a 3 to a 5 on your fear scale. So, for example, you might say, oh, 8 out of 10, I've got to pitch to a stranger for a JV partnership for £250,000. And that is a massive 8 out of 10. Okay. So you might think about breaking that into smaller rungs. So a 3 out of 10 might be that you share a recent deal story on social media. A 4 out of 10 means that you talk about what investing you're doing with a friend or a colleague. And a 5 out of 10 might means that you ask permission to send, an investor an overview of what you're doing. And with each of these smaller rungs, you then kind of reflect, well, what did I learn from that? What fear story turned out not to be true, actually? Remember, we have more pain in our imagination than in reality. And another reflection might be, what would my 12 months from now self thank me for by doing these things? And as Viktor Frankl, the author of The Man's Search for Meaning, said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space, our power to choose, in that space is our power to choose our response. So your fear compass is using that space wisely. So make sure you use these following books to help you turn your fear into actual fuel. So we've mentioned these. So Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. It's an absolute classic, understanding fear, but taking action in spite of it. Mindset by Carol Dweck. This is the growth versus fixed mindset. Psychocybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And that's really about your self-image and really resetting what you believe you can handle emotionally and financially. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, are absolute timeless principles. And Ryan Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way. And this is kind of a real modern take, turning problem setbacks into yeses, taking that as a raw material for growth. So I will link all of those into the show notes. So really think and pick one property decision that you've been avoiding and run it through that fear compass. Name the fear, ask the growth questions, think about, is it the right size risk for you, and take those smallest steps that you can in the next 24 hours. And then do message me, tag me, and share your fear compass actions so we can cheer you on and keep you accountable. So if you know someone stuck at a crossroads watching deals go by because they're scared to move, then please do share this episode. It could be the real game changer they need. And the more people we help to upgrade their mindset, the more of us can grow together in this space. So do remember, property success isn't just about what you do. It's about how you think and what state you're in when you make decisions. When you combine smart strategy with calm, focused, courageous mind, there's no limit to what you can build in the long term. So as always, your mindset is your greatest property. Keep building it.